Hello and welcome to the Dead Air Dudes. I'm Izzy. When we're back again, and this time we have a special guest, Dr. Orville Rocca. Welcome to the Dead Air Dudes podcast.
Hello, Mr. Izzy. Hello to all Deader Dudes Nation. I must tell you, as head pathologist of the division of Umbrella, I'm here to talk about the zombie virus versus the fungus seen in the television show and the video game Last of Us.
All right, now if you guys don't know, welcome one and all to the Dead Air Dudes. And we, on this episode, are going to discuss what is worse, the zombie outbreak or the zombie virus and the fungal viral, contagion or whatever you want to call it from The Last of Us, as now seen on HBO Max, as well as the Sony video game mega hit. Well, obviously, the show stars Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey, sorry, among others. And we're currently through episode 2, or I do believe a 8 to 9 episode season, in which supposedly the whole season is going to entail the first game. So, Dr. Rocca, please take it away.
So we're talking about fungus. What is a fungus? Why is fungus different than plants? Why is fungus different than virus? Better, worse, what? What is a fungus? There's about 144,000 species of known fungus, although my colleagues would argue there's about 1 million different species out there. Some are one of the oldest organisms on Earth. They mimic plants. They also mimic some animal cells, which is why they're categorized as eukaryotes. I'm trying to keep this less scientific heavy for everyone to understand.
Of course.
Now, in the show itself, the doctor in 1968 or whatever was warning against this to be the fearsome pathogen, not viruses, not bacteria.
Exactly.
And the reason he gave is because they're highly adaptive.
Yes.
They are a higher complex organism than both viruses, bacteria, and what other people don't know much of, but even less, prions. Have you ever heard of mad cow?
Yes, I have heard of mad cow.
Jacob's Creutzfeldt. That is a strain from
Gesundheit.
prion is smaller fragments of proteins, even smaller than the DNA in a virus, but they wreak havoc. You ingest some tainted meat, and in 20 years, you go mad. Much like zombies. And before we go into the discussion of fungus, let's go into viruses. What is virus? You hear COVID-19, AIDS, all different viruses.
Common cold,
Influenza strand. All these viruses are strands of DNA, RNA. They hijack a cell. They get in there. They use the cell's mechanisms, exhausted organs, and the energy to pump out replicants of itself until that cell is dead. It made so many babies, and it affects the next cell and the next cell until that organism is either dead, uses existence, or defeats it, but it still uses it to contaminate other beings. What are some really crazy forms of virus outbreaks that mimic a zombie outbreak? The biggest one everyone can point to is rabies.
Of course, rabies. I think I saw the movie.
And rabies has no cure. You can stop it if you get treatment within 24 hours and 48 hours. You still have it for the rest of your life.
Poor Cujo.
Poor Cujo. But what does rabies make a person? Rabid, lose their mind, salivate at the mouth, go crazy, zombie-like. There's a sleeping sickness. I don't know if you heard of this, spread by the tsetse fly in sub-Saharan Africa. Again, caused by a virus. Fever, joints, pain, itching, headaches, until you progress to poor motor coordination, confusion, behavioral changes, sleep disturbances, and you act all weirded out like a zombie.
So are you saying that there are real zombies out there, Doctor?
I'm saying that there are viruses that are inducing zombie-like behavior, and with the help of some genetic help and engineering, they can be manipulated to cause zombie-like behavior.
Like you guys did in Umbrella.
No comment. Back to the fungus. Fungus is more complex. They live in any kind of environment. Now, what's the biggest thing they said in the Last of Us opening scene with the doctors? The warning is not the fungus will take over. The warning was, we're doing too much damage to the earth, that global warming will contribute to the fungus at some point being left unchecked.
Yeah, because they were mentioning something to the effect of that fungus cannot survive at a certain temperature, and or has to survive after at a certain temperature. And since global warming is increasing the temperature, it makes it what, I guess, the breeding ground or a more adaptable environment for said fungi.
Yes. Now, they're not 100% correct, accurate. There are some fungi that have been
Well,
identified.
Doctor, come on, it's a freaking TV show.
They are identified in very hot already. I'm saying already in hot tropical environments. Also, there's been some fungus identified in Antarctica and the Arctic Circle. Sub-zero. Now, I'm saying it's not just a TV show. I'm saying the possibility is already there. We are at a healthy state, 96.8 degrees Fahrenheit. Supposedly around 94 degrees, the fungi don't really like it. They check out. A 2 or 3 degree difference. If they were to adapt to that, then they can adapt to our body. Here's another thing.
Like in the show.
Here's another thing that goes in favor of fungus already in everybody invading human habitat, because they already attack animals and plants. I am drinking here a beer. This is made from wheat that's been fermented by yeast. Yeast is fungus. Anybody who's ever consumed bread, it's made by fungus. Anybody who's ever eaten a mushroom, it is a fungus. Fungus is everywhere. Anyone's had athlete's foot, fungus. So fungus is already everywhere, everything. Now, the producers of the video game had noted that they saw a television show way back when. Here we go. BBC's Planet Earth, 2006. A zombie ant fungus, which was part of the cordyceps species, the same species in the video game and now the movie. If you watch this episode and if you see video, it's eerily similar to the clickers that you see in the movie. What they do is they invade the ant, they use the ant to spread its spores, basically gutting the ant from the inside out, controlling the brain.
Right.
To bring the ant to more humid areas or less humid areas, or to spread it to different areas, or to feed or whatever. It is more than the virus, a smart, functioning zombie controller.
So bottom line, in your professional opinion, Is the fungus worse than the virus, or is the virus worse than the fungus?
In my humble opinion, in all my bioengineering research, which I didn't do, absolutely. Not only is it exquisite, it's beautiful.
Interesting.
The second thing that you saw, which is very clever and scientifically based, when the dead soldier who's already infected.
By the way, spoilers on some of the episode 1, episode 2, and if you haven't seen the show, please check it out. So continue, Raka. I mean, Dr. Raka, please.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. When he touched the earth and connected with the main colony of the fungus,
Right.
cordyceps, it triggered like an echolocation. He was acting like a GPS, possibly sending feedback: where, when, how many people, come now, some signal. The viruses and zombies and the horde and everything like that, except for one of that really pathetic zombie show way back. They don't communicate that way. No, the other one where they had mind control and the whole thing. They don't communicate that way.
The Nation?
Yes, the Nation. This is a thinking, maneuvering, reacting as a whole, as a colony. You don't see that. That's, I dare say, use the word intelligence.
Would you say it's like a hive mind, maybe?
A combination of a hive mind, of course, powered by what every species on Earth has, is the will to survive.
Borg, I mean, sorry, sorry, wrong, show.
Survive and reproduce.
Fascinating. Now, in all seriousness, there's a couple things that the producers of the show, and which actually Neil Druckmann also wrote, was one of the primary writer on the game. Well, there's a huge difference between the game and the show on how the spores, how the fungus interact with humans. In the game, there's spores all around, but the spores actually stay in localized areas, which the characters have, can go in and out. But if they did that in the series, it would be a little messy, and that little, it wouldn't. They wanted
there be limitations to it.
Exactly. They want to ground it as much reality in the fiction as possible. So therefore, which you obviously they came with the idea of the tendrils. Exactly. In a bite, in a cut, in whatever else, which they did bite in the game as well, obviously, but it's more of like a squirmy, wormy like tendrils. And which is exactly what, as you mentioned, with the soldier, when he went down, saw all the tendrils come out, which connected to the earth and all the rest of the fungus, which in turn called everybody, and shit went cray. So
I mean, now to go into the deep dive of the series itself, if you take the first and second episode together as a whole, notwithstanding the video game, because both of you and I have played the video game,
right,
it constructed great drama, and it intermixed it with science, right? And the only way I could say this is to compare and contrast. The Walking Dead, they had that one episode with the scientists which told you nothing. Here, they're telling you everything.
Yeah, but the problem with the Walking Dead, in the comparison to the Walking Dead, and I don't want to. Episode is not about what's better, what's worse, Walking Dead and or The Last of Us, but we use the Walking Dead as the example, as it was the at the forefront of the zombie genre at the time. Okay, especially early on. But it's also they chose not, as you mentioned, not to say anything, not to explain anything, because they left it up to the viewer or the reader to determine what caused the zombie outbreak, zombie apocalypse. And the story is not so much about the zombies as it is more about humanity,
Survivors.
the survivors, who they themselves are the Walking Dead.
Now, similar to this, though, these are about the survivors.
Of course, but you have a more formidable, more realistic, more scarier because it's actually rooted in science that theoretically it actually can happen.
Can happen. And if you watch that
Zombies
zombie
cannot happen. At least not the way they're shown and described in The Walking Dead or Z Nation or Black Summer or on and on and on and on.
no, but
If
what the
they're
science part
animated
does,
corpses, that will never happen.
no, but what the science part does in the first episode and the beginning of the second one, it kind of adds a little bit of completeness to it.
Of course.
And what the whole thing is fictional, but by adding that, you you embed a little bit of credential,
Yeah,
right? And that makes it even more fearful, like you just said,
of course.
because it's a formidable enemy, and it's like, oh, it's an enemy that can really happen. You know, now the drama and the acting and everything, and then the finality and the seriousness that everything takes place has been fantastic. I think the characters and how they develop and how they're presented. Maybe I know Bella takes a big beating here, but they're all believable characters in their story arcs to this point. You know, Pedro Pascal's character is so bitter and resentful.
Why? But why does Bella take a beating?
I don't know, really. I think she's fine. She's a bit of a smart mouth. Maybe you want to hate her, but she's the supposed savior of humanity because of her immunity. I don't know. I think she's fine. I am more captivated by Pedro's character and how things are played out. Um, I as not too much compare and contrast with The Walking Dead. I fall back to the video game,
Yeah.
just like people who watch The Walking Dead fall back to the comic book. I fall back to the video game, and I do have to hold myself back because I know they're two different entities. So far, it's been extremely similar, though.
I mean,
Which I love.
they've lifted straight cut scenes from the game into the show.
Which has been ridiculously good.
But
And it's garnered the highest, one of the highest HBO watch viewing crowd.
it was the highest turnout from episode 1 to episode 2 in the history of HBO, which is kind of crazy considering they've had a multitude of great shows. Arguably, some of the best shows of all time have come in one way or another form through HBO.
And HBO, to their credit, has always been very smart and tactical. There's nothing else competing right now at all, not even close.
I mean,
there's some good shows, but nothing with the same kind of buzz to fill this time slot. It's brilliantly placed. You could easily say, "Oh, this should have been in Halloween." No, this owns the airwaves right now.
No, look. They were very intelligent at the moment they put it. They actually rushed it, and they got the right showrunner. So far, so good. I mean, I played the game years and years ago, so I remember a lot of it, but in bits and pieces. I would have liked to have played the game again.
Well, my friend, I am playing the game again.
Are you playing it in 4K though on the PS5?
Oh, that's a shot to my knees and my wallet.
No, I didn't mean like that. I meant
damn you, man.
They did remaster it. So what?
Listen, but the gameplay is the same.
And you know what? And that was probably the biggest flaw for me in the game was the gameplay. And don't get me wrong, the gameplay was great. But check this out. I played it right after I played Uncharted 2, which is arguably the best game in the history of Sony. Okay, next to this, right? and all the things that Nathan Drake did in, not to get too crazy into video games, in the game, jumping and climbing and doing all those things. You can't do those things in The Last of Us because it's limited on purpose as survival horror, akin to Resident Evil.
They don't have supernatural powers.
You don't
They're
have
they're
freaking
regular
guns
dudes.
and bullets everywhere. You have to run, you have to escape, you have to be quiet. You can't just.
Well, that's why the translation to the screen is different because he takes a million shots, right? And he has health packs and he heals. You can't take that many bullet shots in the real world.
Well, of course not.
You know, um, what what I have to commend them is they've captured the essence of the video game and translated, in my opinion, exceptionally well to the screen. Also, to the point that if you never played the video game and you had no idea what it was about, you're captivated by the series.
No, and the best thing that I can tell you, or the best seal of approval that I can give to you guys, to HBO, to Sony, is that there's at least 3 co-workers who I've mentioned to the show and they haven't seen it, but all of a sudden now they watched it and now they're interested in playing the game
See?
because of the series. I mean, it's just, one of the best beginnings of a show that I've seen. And people might say, "Oh, it's a bit slow. It's a bit kind of middling in the
No,
whole thing."
you know what?
Well, I mean, hey, that's build up, man. Deal with it.
For no reason whatsoever, I guess there was just nothing on. Beginning of the year, I rewatched the first 3 episodes of The Walking Dead season 1. And I didn't mean it at all. I did not intend it to be a compare and contrast to this. I know this was coming. But I just had to put it on.
Rocco must
It
have
was
been
on
very, very bored that night.
very, very bored. But the first 2 episodes, actually, the first episode kind of dragged, but dragged in a good way.
It's a complete anyone. I'll say this. I'll compare this to anyone. I'll argue with it till the cows come home. The first season of The Walking Dead is arguably the best season of the whole series. 1 and 2. After Darabont left the show became
Absolutely
different,
tanked.
completely different. And I wouldn't say tanked because even up until the governor and all that, it was still great.
It lost its horror edge.
Oh, yes, it did. Yes, 100%.
And that's the biggest thing for me. Once he left, it lost that horror edge. It became more of a, I hate to keep using this, it became more of a maintaining soap opera with the horror and the survivalness and the savagery of human nature in the backdrop. In the very beginning, I understand why the first episode goes a little slow because Rick he just woke up. He doesn't know what the hell is going on. He walks out, but he doesn't see a zombie for miles until he gets hit in the head and stuff. And then he gets dragged in.
Bring it back. Bring it back.
Okay. But just like other horror movies and such, right out of the gate, this series gets it gets thick. It gets moving. It gets desperate. You know where things are. We're talking 20 years post-event where new regime, new politics, strife, you're at the mercy of whoever's in charge. You have some rebels, and you have desperate situations with
Oh no, it's an adult show with tragic losses and not many wins. It's the way it should be.
There's a flicker of hope.
I still think to a degree, and again, we keep going back to Walking Dead because we can't go back to Resident Evil. No offense. I think that Walking Dead, it was like almost day before the quarter. They had to kill someone every so often, but for the most part, everyone was safe. Here, I mean, geez, it's the apocalypse and there's freaking fungus running around. It's
There's some great scenery, some great special effects.
yeah,
I mean, especially for those that play the video games, once you have these long shots and these pan views of iconic scenes in the gameplay, you get a little, you get that warm fuzzy feeling deep down inside.
you get teary eyed.
And one last thing, without really going full frontal spoiler, um, kudos to the heroic, tragic end of one of the main characters already in episode 2. I thought that was, I mean, for 24 gun salute. That was man meter times 10. That was great. And you couldn't even cheer that person on. You couldn't. It was like, okay, let's go. I was damn.
Obviously, if you guys did not see what Rocka is talking about, I mean, spoiler alert, so but yeah, you know. But all in all, hey, no more accolades, nothing else I could say. Let's go on to episode 3, 8 out of 5 out of 10. I mentioned that in a couple in my quick reviews. I'm all in. Let's go.
I'm all in. Again, let's go. I know we made a little light of this, but it does seem more realistic that if fungal outbreak can happen in a viral one, we hope none of this really happens in real life. We've been through too much pandemic shit. But right now, get lost in the imaginary world of The Last of Us. I'm Dr. Orville Rocca.
And I'm Apprentice Izzy. Please comment, like, and subscribe. As usual, save the whales.
Oh, please comment. Thank you.